Hey y'all, welcome back to New Slang. I'm Thomas Mooney. This is episode 150. And yeah, it is the final episode of the year. This one right here is with Bella White, who, if you haven't checked her out just yet, I give you permission, hit the pause button and go check out her album called Just Like Leaving right now. And then, yeah, you can come back to and listen to the rest of this episode. It is her debut album, and it's just a really nice, solid collection of songs and moments. It's very grounded in bluegrass and Appalachian instrumentation, and that helps create these nice spaces for these songs. Songs that are full yet open, and the fiddle and mandolin, they just really work well with Bella's voice, and often that longing sense that she's singing about. I mentioned it near the end of this episode, but I feel like I want to expand a little bit more here. I think that Bella does such a great job of writing about a larger theme or a feeling, but in these very, very small ways. Like if a song is about a relationship coming to an end, she doesn't zoom out and try and capture everything and say everything at once. Instead, she goes in and just tries to frame these like specific moments. As like the saying would go, like Rome wasn't built in a day, and a relationship doesn't end in a single moment, usually at least. Most of the time, it's these series of events, and instead of just trying to throw all these series into one song or try and generalize all those feelings, she just like tries to capture a pocket, a moment, if you will, and she does that so well. And I think what that does is it helps show the weight of that moment. I think that's probably like her greatest strength as a songwriter right now. As I said, Just Like Leaving, it is her proper debut, so she is just getting started. And that's probably like what's the most surprising aspect of this, is that she is so young, yet she does come with a very mature sense of not just like the way she sings about songs or like the viewpoints in these songs, but how she approaches the songs as well. Okay, so a couple of things really, really quick. Like I mentioned, this is the final episode of the year. It's not the year I had in mind, of course. I'm sure it wasn't what you envisioned either. This podcast, it went into a lot of directions that I didn't necessarily think it would go into this year. Obviously, there's been growth and expansion and trying to figure things out, but it's been a pretty solid year overall as far as New Slang goes. By my count, I've released 73 episodes this year. Number 77 was with Josh Morningstar, and that was way back in March. Like, it feels like a lifetime ago. As I've said, this is kind of like been quote-unquote season 5 of New Slang. This is clearly number 150, and yeah, so 73 episodes. If you haven't had a chance to listen to each and every one of those just yet, I encourage you to do so. Go and find your favorite artists and listen to them talk about whatever. I probably repeat myself throughout and revisit multiple themes and questions and ideas with each of them, and because I don't know, like I feel like that's just something that we all do. Also, I'm going to just run this final episode ad-free. This is just like you would hear it if you were a New Slang Patreon subscriber. The Patreon is an excellent way to help support New Slang. Think of this as like a test drive, and if you really like it, hopefully maybe you'll join. It's as little as $3 a month, which I'll be adding all of the Neon Eon stuff to the Patreon as well, which if you're asking yourself right now, what is the Neon Eon? It's this new show that I'm launching next week that is just solely about 90s country. It'll be weekly and feature interviews and commentary and stories with and about artists, bands, songwriters, other journalists, writers, and probably some producers and guitar pickers and so on. These first few episodes, they will be the interview variety. Things kick off next week, as a matter of fact. I'm pretty horrible at keeping secrets. Well, actually, I take that back. I'm actually really, really great at keeping secrets. But when it comes to things like this that are like a little bit more exciting news, that's when I'm pretty horrible at keeping it a secret. I'd rather just share it than have it be a surprise in the moment. So I'll go ahead and tell you who the first guest of the Neon Eon is. Now, that comes with a caveat. They'll be the episode number 1 guest as long as, like Shania or Garth or Reba or George Strait doesn't give me a call between now and next Wednesday. And even then, I'm pretty much like a man of my word. Like, we've already kind of have it set up as the first episode. So even then, I may have to push Shania to episode number 2. Okay, I'm just rambling now, but that first episode, it will be with Clay Walker, Mr. Hypnotize the Moon himself. What's it to you, dreaming with my eyes wide open? This woman and this man? Yes, I even asked him about the song Live, Laugh, Love. I spoke with Clay a few weeks back, and, it was really pretty damn good. We went over a lot of material, and he gave some really great reflections on the era, some insight, all of that kind of great stuff. So yeah, the Neon Eon episode 1, Clay Walker, next Wednesday. Before we get started, I want to mention that all of our socials that will be in the show notes, I'll throw in the Neon Eon stuff in there as well for good measure, and links to the merch store and the Patreon. Check all of those out. Next week, New Slang will be back to a regular schedule of Mondays and Thursdays as well. I know everyone says this, it should be expected, but I actually really do have some really exciting things planned for 2021. I already have quite a few guests lined up and confirmed for the early part of the year. Okay, I will just stop now because if I continue, I'll just ramble with no end in sight. Let's just get on into the interview. Here is the wonderful Bella White. Okay, one small programming note. For some reason, whenever I was recording, like the first 5 minutes or so isn't here. And yeah, so like that kind of means that when this picks up, we're already kind of like mid-conversation, and yeah, I apologize. I don't know what else to say.
Whatever. That's like how you play bluegrass music, is you just play it and then you're done playing it. You've played the song and you've picked it and you had a good time, and like hopefully everyone felt good about it. And I think that also helps with the kind of keeping it sparse and keeping it, accessible.
Yeah, there's something very like in the moment and very present about, especially like anything like acoustic, right? Where so much of what it is the present, like that's what it's all about. And so like, yeah, like just spending a day on a song and not like just, I guess, overthinking it, like not just trying to reinvent the wheel just for the sake of reinvention,
Yeah, and I feel like when people, like sometimes people do that and it sounds amazing and it works, but I feel like so often I hear something like that and I'm just like, oh, I wanted to hear what it sounded like before. Like I wanted to hear it. You just play it like how you would play it, not like how you would hire someone to come and, make it crazy. Like I just want to hear the song, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, so I kind of take it like this was probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, a week and a half recording the record.
Yeah, we were in the studio for like 9 days, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's a 9-song record. I'm not that great at math, but
there's a day per song, pretty much. There's 9 tracks on the record. Yeah.
Well, so like, how far back do the songs go? As far as like, how far back is like the earliest song, and like I guess that time span.
Totally. I think that the earliest song is All I Gave to You, which I think I wrote that in 2018. And then I would think all the other songs I wrote like between like September of 2019 and then going into the studio. So besides that first track, pretty much everything was written like within like 7 months of making the record.
Mm-hmm. Is that one of those things where you do you kind of like write in clusters or in bunches, or is it one of those things where like that song was just always a standout for you that you just knew that you needed to record that song, as far as it kind of being like further back from the rest?
Yeah, I think I just like that song was really special to me because it was when I kind of like, I guess I wrote it when I first started playing with I was always taking bluegrass my whole childhood and like playing, but I didn't really start playing my own songs with the bluegrass band until then. I was kind of just like hiring guns here and there as I could, but kind of around the fall of 2018, I was like, okay, I want to like tour with a band and I want them to like be my band. And I wrote that song at that time. And I kind of like, it was like one of my first experiences, like really feeling like I worked on something really hard with a group of people to make it sound good. And so I feel like that song was really special to me in that way. And then also I actually almost called the album All I Gave to You. I really liked that song. So I was pretty sure that I was going to have it on the album, or I was 100% sure because I thought I was going to call the album the name of it.
Yeah. Like I always find that interesting too. It kind of relates to that whole thing of, you know, when you're young, you just, constant growth. And like, you know, obviously too, when you're young, you're just filled with, I think, song ideas. And like,
yeah,
it's one of those things where like everyone just kind of, when you're young, you just have, not necessarily that you have more ideas, but you are more up to like chase that idea. And like, obviously with experience, totally. Like sometimes you, like you go, I just know I'm not going to catch that song or whatever the case is. Maybe you know yourself as like, whatever the case is. But I find that really interesting as far as like, you know, just kind of seeing, because you'll see it with other artists too, where maybe like a bunch of songs from their first record is from a specific kind of era, and then there's one that's like plucked from before that just kind of always stayed around.
Yeah, totally. I definitely noticed that with like a lot of artists, and I feel like my album is sort of that way too, like we said, you know, because like pretty much, I don't know, 90% of it is like all within the same 7 months, and then that one track is just like, wait, what are you talking about? Like that was so early, but yeah.
Yeah. So like, were these the other songs as far as like that bunch goes? I'm sure there was a bunch of other songs that were written within the same period. What was it like, I guess, like figuring out what those 8 songs were from the collection as a whole? Or was it really just like those 8 songs and there wasn't much that you had to like, I guess, drop?
Like seed through?
Yeah.
Well, I had a bunch of other songs, like I said, that I'd recorded on an album that I never released. So I initially had some kind of thoughts about, well, like maybe re-recording them and trying to mix them up and see if I, you know, would like them for this album. But those ones I tried, never felt good. And I think like what's been really important for me, especially when I'm like playing with a band and everything, is like, and this seems so obvious, but like I want it to feel good when we play it. So I feel like with a lot of those songs, it just didn't feel good. And so that was like very obvious for me that I just wasn't going to record them. So that was kind of easy in some ways. And then, like kind of what we were talking about earlier, like music getting stale or feeling like you've been sitting on something for too long. I think it was just that too, where I was like, these songs don't feel relevant to my life anymore. But then the other side of the dime was that I was also writing a lot of new songs at the time that I was making the record. So it was kind of like, I like had the songs picked out for the record, but then I was like, oh, but I just wrote this song. What if I put this one on there? Or like, you know what, I want to put this new song on the record. But I had to kind of like remind myself that there's going to be more records. And so I don't have to just like put every single song I've ever written on one record and have it be like 25 tracks long. So I feel like I just like tried to pick the most cohesive songs that felt like they kind of told a story in some ways, and just, you know, be like, okay, you are my children right now. Let's water you and see what happens.
Yeah. Like just, you know, hey guys, I wrote this song last night. Can we go ahead and cut it now?
Yeah. I think one track, I did do that with one track, the just Unwanted, the one with twin fiddles. I was like, I think I wrote it like 3 days before we went into the studio. And that was the one that I was like, look, I just really want to put this on the record because I really want it to have twin fiddles. And I couldn't think of a different song that I would put twin fiddles on and it would feel the same. So that was my one exception for just like throwing an unborn child into the mix.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, you know, you're from Calgary and you moved to Boston for school, but then like now you're in Nashville. What I was wanting to know is like, obviously that coincides with writing these songs for this record in Nashville, I'm assuming, right?
I actually wrote most of them in Boston.
Oh, okay. So like, okay, well,
yeah.
I guess this question's still going to be basically the same, but like, has been moving to, I mean, you went to Boston to a school that's primarily for music, right?
I actually didn't
Or,
go to Berkeley. I just fed off of Berkeley. I just lived in a
oh,
house with
okay.
like 12 Berkeley people, but we could say that I went to Berkeley. I didn't go to Berkeley, but I
Okay, well,
pretend that I did.
you're around music people regardless. What I was want to know though
Yeah.
is like, you know, did your music like did you write more songs like just being around in that area? And then like
Mm.
again, like when you moved to Nashville, has that been also like another, I guess, swell of like an outpouring of songs and song ideas and whatnot?
Yeah, totally. I definitely feel like when I was in Boston, I was writing all the time because I was like living with a bunch of other songwriters. So I would like hear them writing, or I would, they would play me their songs or whatnot. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta write a song now too. Like I can't fall behind. It was almost like this weird, like, I don't want to say like competitive edge, but I just wanted to make sure that I was constantly growing. And like the only way that you become a better writer is by writing. Um, and so I felt like being around so many musicians, like I said, I was living with like 11 other musicians that were all playing all the time. And so that was really inspiring and also sort of anxiety inducing because, you like fear that you're going to like not practice enough or not write enough. But I think like moving to Boston was such a big thing for me because it was like my first time moving cities and it was just like a little bit scary. So that also just like the experience of moving like evoked a lot of emotion for me that then I was able to kind of mine and, write about. And then when I moved to Nashville, it was sort of the same thing where I moved in, I lived with 3 other musicians in Nashville, so not 11, so slightly less intense. But yeah, it's just like being around new people that are creative and inspiring. And then, the emotions of moving again to a new city and just kind of like with everything that's going on right now, there's like a lot to feel. And so I think, yeah, it's just been like, it's like another kind of like, again, what we were talking about earlier, like how you write in sort of chunks or like there's little eras of songwriting. I feel like my album is primarily kind of like the Boston era of my life. And then, yeah, now I'm sort of writing in this kind of like Nashville era of my life.
Yeah, like that's you in a house with like 11 other musicians. That's like I don't know, like an MTV show like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, totally.
I do find like that. I guess like being around other songwriters, being in like, I guess you said, you didn't want to use the word competition, but I get what you're saying because like
Yeah.
for example, like here in Lubbock, there's been like a few different kind of, I guess, if you want to call them like classes that have come through Lubbock, where
Yeah, totally.
at the Blue Light there's songwriter night, and like that's every Monday, and every Monday, just every songwriter in town would, or not every, but you get the gist. Songwriters would go
Yeah,
up
I
there
get
and
what you
play their new songs and stuff, and these like little classes were like all buddies and stuff, but there was like this little bit of pressure of like, oh, I need to have like a new song by Monday, or I need to
Yeah,
like have this song better by next Monday, because so and so is
totally.
also working on his song, or like, so I think like that's, I think I've used like the whole like iron sharpens iron, or you know what I mean, steel sharpens
Yeah.
steel kind of thing, where if you're around other people who are also, just as devoted or just as hardworking as you are in the same kind of field, like it just kind of rubs off where it's just kind of a
Yeah,
natural
you feed
thing.
off of
So
it.
yeah,
Totally. I feel like it's almost like this kind of like, in some ways, I guess, yeah, like I initially said, you could look at it as like a competition, but in other ways, you could just look at it as like exponential growth because you're all just feeding off of each other's energy and like you all just like want to be better. You're not necessarily trying to be better than each other, but like I always found like if one of my roommates would like write a really amazing song, I'd be like, oh, well, I want to write a really amazing song. Like not to write a better song than you, but just to write a better song than I've ever written before for myself.
yeah. Well, like you mentioned like the whole anxiety part too. Like I guess like just being around other people who, I don't know. Like I think like there's also on the other side of that where you're probably familiar with this, where no matter how hard you try, sometimes you just are in a little bit of a funk, and like
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to get something out. Was that like the relation to the anxiety, or was it also just kind of, being away from home and being in Boston?
Oh man. I think it was definitely just not being able to get something out sometimes. I'm actually kind of going through like a little weird writing slump right now too, where it's like no matter how hard you try, it just like nothing is working or it doesn't feel right. And that's like, yeah, that's the thing that anxiety inducing for me is just that kind of like feeling like you can't do something when you've done it a million times before. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I not able to do this thing that's been so natural for me in the past? But yeah, I definitely think it's more about just like if everyone around you is creating and then you're for some reason unable to produce something, it's just like it's the most strange feeling because you're like, wait, I've done this before. Why can't I do it right now?
Yeah. Well, also, do you have this feeling right here, where you're trying to say like, I don't know, like all of it at once? Like you're trying to say like
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 things at once, and you just don't know where to start.
Yeah, totally. Starting is always the hardest part. Or it's like the totally easiest part because I feel like if something just like really wants to come out, it will. But yeah, sometimes you have to like coax it out of its shell a little bit. And then, yeah, like that's what I've been struggling with lately as like, I almost feel like there's so much going on in the world right now. Like there's so much to feel that I almost like, I don't even know how to express all of the things that I'm feeling because there's too much. And then it kind of just like leaves you feeling a little bit useless because you're like, how do I say this without just like, I don't know, saying it all at once. And then you can't say it all at once because there's too much. And it's just like a big snowball of doubt.
Yeah. Like that's where, as a journalist, like writing something like even as simple as writing an album review, sometimes like what I
Mm-hmm.
feel is I just won't be able to get it out because there's like 5 things I want to say at once, and like you don't know how to put those in order. Or sometimes like when you like something too much, that's what I've
Yeah.
realized too, is like, well, I want to say like all this stuff about it, but I don't even know how to begin. And I don't know, like, well, I guess like one of my things that I always just go back to is like, just say like whatever like your point is, just say it, and you don't have to worry about like the flowery aspect of it. And then maybe like you can go back later and make it sound more awesome, but just literally
Yeah,
just
like
say what you're
craft
trying to
it.
say. Yeah. And
Totally.
but I feel like that's just like that little bit of, I don't know, like the roadblock sometimes is that
Yeah.
simple. And like I don't know if other people understand that, is where, yeah, sometimes you're
Hmm.
trying to say too much too quickly, and like I don't know, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Well, and like with a song too, like, I mean, people break this rule all the time, but I remember hearing so much like when I was younger, it's like you want your song to be like 3 to 4 minutes long. And then it's just like, wait, how do I like pour out all of my feelings in 3 minutes of words? Like how do I do this? And then kind of like you said, it's like you have too much to say. So then sometimes I'll just be like, well, this song's not going to happen. I'm just not going to say anything at all. But it's like, no, if you just sat down and like wrote what you felt and then came back to it later and you like crafted it a little bit more, because like that's like what writing is. It's like you have to craft it. It's like you're chiseling something out, and it's not gonna just like come out and be like this beautiful piece of work. Like you have to work away at it. You have to chip away at it and like create the shapes that you're trying to actually make. But it doesn't just like, yeah, it doesn't usually just come out that way. Sometimes it does, but not so much.
Yeah, like I feel I've probably have mentioned this 100 times on the podcast, so people are probably going, okay, we get the fucking point. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe we sometimes romanticize like the writing part a little
Yeah,
too much, where it's like we make it sound like it was just effortless. Like, oh yeah, I wrote that song in
yeah,
5 minutes, and I don't like my hand was just moving, and it was
yeah,
easy. And like
totally.
sometimes it can be like that, and it can be just like this, super easy flow of emotion just on pen to paper, whatever the case. But a lot of times it is that chiseling away, and maybe like you don't get all the chunks off like at once. Sometimes you just have to come
Yeah.
back.
totally. And I used to have this like horrible fear of that, of like, if I would sit down and, write a song, like, I feel like I used to just like I would often just like have that kind of like, oh my God, I have this urge, I need to write a song right now. So I would sit down and I would just like write a full song. And I like rarely do that anymore. But I have this fear of like sometimes walking away from something before it's finished, even with the intention of coming back to it. It's like scary to leave it because I'm scared that I'm going to like lose the idea. But then if I walk away from it, I feel like even if I totally haven't, I'm like, oh, I lost it. It's not going to come back. And then I don't pick it up again because I feel like I didn't complete it. But when really it's not meant to be completed in one sitting. Like you said, like you have to keep coming back to it and working. It's like, it's like you have to knead it. It's like dough or something.
Yeah. Like it's so weird because, so I guess it was probably, I don't know, this interview had to be back like in I guess maybe the late 80s. And it was with Bob Dylan. And I remember reading it, like, I guess they had like they either like re-released it or it was like an old forgotten interview that was never released on American-Songwriter. And the thing that like just always stuck out for me that Dylan had said during this was like the hardest part of writing was like keeping that initial inspiration, that initial idea intact throughout like the entire writing process, because like it can, and it's not to say like, a song changing its meaning halfway through and like you deciding it needs to be this instead is not wrong, but like how often and easy it is that like that initial inspiration, that initial like whatever that spark was that made you sit down to write so easily that it can be like dampened out or like lost.
Yeah, totally. It's like, it's so easy to lose. Like, what is the point of what you're trying to say? I feel like I always I lose it often. I'll be writing and I'll be like, wait, what am I even writing about right now? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm thinking about like how in English and like every English class you've ever taken, like your English teacher's always like, what was your thesis? Like maybe that's like totally. What everyone needs to do is like write down like their quote unquote thesis.
Write down their little thesis and their hook, like what are you trying to say right now? I've started to try and do that a little bit when I'm writing. Like I'll have usually just like, the sheet of paper that I'm writing the actual lyrics on. And then I've lately been just putting like a brain dump piece of paper next to me where I'll try and write down the point of what I'm trying to say. And then I'll, everything that I feel like this can help with the sort of like, I'm trying to say too much or I have too much to say thing, is if you just like have a blank piece of paper next to you where anytime something pops into your head where you're like, okay, I want to say this eventually, but I don't know how, instead of just trying to like mash it in immediately, just like write it down next to you so you don't forget it. But like, you don't have to put it in the song immediately, or you don't have to, try and fit it into the like 3 lines of, writing that you already have.
Yeah. Like that's
kind of helpful.
That is always like just, what I always do is if I'm writing on someone, I always just kind of put down like, I don't know, like 10 keywords that I kind of want to use. Like maybe they're just descriptors or like adjectives or like, whatever the case. And I would just kind of have them like below the piece or above the piece. And then like, you're kind of like working that in. And I find like I find all these little like tricks and tips around the songwriting. Like whenever I find that so interesting, I feel like everyone has them, everyone has like these little things that they do that like you end up learning from someone else. I guess it was episode 100 that I did earlier this year with Clint Black, who he had mentioned, and this is one of those things like I never in 100 years thought like Clint Black would say like he wrote like this, but he was talking about how I guess him and his guitar player have written like 90% of the songs they've ever done that team, and like how they would do like a word bubble kind of thing, like a cloud, I guess. Oh, so like this song idea is about this, and then like have like just like lines go into other. Well, when I think about this song. When I think about love, I think about these things, and they all
Yeah.
point out, and then like from there they would pick out like to when I think about this word, relationship.
Yeah, you get your little chestnuts.
Yeah. And I find that
Totally.
like it's like you don't really think about someone like Clint Black doing that, like
Yeah,
going through
totally.
that like that process, but that to me was very, very enlightening, and like seeing like, oh, okay, well, I wonder how many other people do that thing. Maybe it's not like I feel
Totally.
like you're kind of doing the same thing, but not like in the same process. Obviously, like it's
Yeah. Yeah, it's like everyone has their style of doing the same thing. It's like your little, like your own, it's like the idea is the same, but your execution's just slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like going kind of with like the same thought as like that's it being like, the point of your song is like your thesis, like your English class. You always have to have your thesis. It's also fun to think about being in like grade 2 English class, like when you're writing like short stories, you have to like write little stories. Like, what are the techniques that your like second grade English teacher gave you to like write a little poem or story, and like use those in songwriting, because like it's just like you're just trying to create ideas and thoughts. And so yeah, like use your little bubbles or your, like I often do, it's called object writing. Are you familiar with that concept?
I guess not. No, or maybe I am, but like I don't know what necessarily that means. But go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. It's like you kind of like sit in a room and you like pick an object. And so like say like I'm looking at, my water glass, and then you like look at like what are the first 3 words that you think of when you see a cup of water, and then what are the 3 words that you think of when you look at those words, and then you can kind of like go on and on until you have like a ton of words. And often by then like that it's like you've completely abandoned like water, like I'm no longer thinking about a cup of water. But that's also an interesting way to like kind of get the ball rolling for just like creative thinking and thinking outside of the box. And I think that was something that I like learned in elementary school. It's just like object writing, which I think is really cool that like your second grade teacher can influence your songwriting.
Yeah, well, there's like that. That's really interesting as a point. Yeah, but and I think this is kind of close to it. Is I guess like this past year, like talking with people about what have they been doing during the pandemic and stuff. A lot of them have mentioned that they've gotten into like just free writing, like just first thing when they wake up in the morning, just like writing for like 5 minutes, just not even just
totally
just write whatever,
like stream of consciousness or whatever.
Stream of conscious, and just let it go. And like then maybe not even necessarily using that, not necessarily even going back and going, oh, what did I write here? What can I pluck out? But like sometimes it's just like it greases the wheels, gets you going. That's what like I always feel like. I don't know. Like this is for me. Like obviously I'm not writing songs, but I'm writing, articles and stuff. One of the things I always used to do, not so much anymore, but every morning I would start out like working on a crossword puzzle, just because like it just kind of get your juices flowing. Just sit down with a cup of coffee and start working on that, and then like I felt like it would make everything a little bit easier throughout the entire day. So I don't know.
Totally.
But
yeah, that's really neat. A crossword puzzle is a good idea. I'm going to steal that.
I feel like if everyone listens to this, they're going to come away with like new songwriting techniques and.
Yeah, everyone's just gonna like write an album. Yeah, that's so funny.
What did my second grade teacher tell me?
Yeah, you have to just think about that. Well, and it's interesting too with that like stream of consciousness, like writing in the morning. Like you say, it kind of like greases the wheel. And I also think too, it gets rid of all the junk that's in your brain. Like I feel like a lot of the time when I'm feeling like a blockage in writing and like what I'm trying to say isn't coming across, or I like can't articulate or can't think of the words that I want to use, it's because I've like got too much other shit just going on in my brain. Like there's too much stuff that's like in the way. So if you just do that, like take that, 10 minutes or whatever to just write everything you're thinking as it comes out, you've like made space for the good stuff to actually like surface, and you've made space to find the things that you actually want to say because you got rid of all the other stuff, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. So, yeah. Are you more of like a morning writer, or is there like a specific time during the day that you've found that works best?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty all over the place. I find I tend to, like, if I'm just like journaling or something, which I often journal before I write songs, just kind of like we were talking about, to like get the stuff out of the way. I feel like I tend to like be more inclined to journal, like either like with my coffee in the morning or like in the evening. Like I'll try and make it really like peaceful, and I'll like make a cup of tea, and I'll like try and get really introspective. But I feel like most of the time when I like write a song that I'm like, oh man, I love this song, it's like, you know, at whatever random time it came to me at. Like it's never, I don't think I have like a super specific like regime that always like I write in the mornings. Like I think I just write when I feel like writing. But if I'm trying to be more structured, I'll like usually write in the mornings or like after dinner.
Yeah. Do you now obviously like you've moved around, but like has there always been like maybe like a space that you go to?
Sorry, a what?
Like a space, like a physical space. Are you kind of like,
Yeah.
my bedroom, or like, oh, I want to be on a back porch, or whatever the case? Is there anything like that for you as well?
Yeah, I like writing outside. I feel like I'm often, even if my songs aren't necessarily about nature, I'm like inspired by nature, and I'm inspired by like things being alive around me, and like witnessing just kind of life. So I like writing outside. And then another place that I feel like I've written a lot of songs has been when I'm like, my mom lives in Victoria, British Columbia. And when I'm visiting home, which I'm actually here right now, like her kitchen table, I feel like I've written a lot of songs at her kitchen table for some reason. And it's not like I always have access to it because I don't live here. But when I am here, I feel like I make a point to like sit down at her table, and something good usually comes out. So, or at least I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the kitchen table. Now, this is an idea for you, maybe. Like you need to take a photo where that can be like your Zoom background. So like maybe, yeah, you can just like always have it projected behind you. Like I'm just transporting myself there. I don't know.
To my mom's kitchen table. Yeah, maybe I'll just get a literal projector in my room, and I'll paint my walls white, and then I can literally project it behind me, and then just be actually there.
Yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned like being from Canada and being growing up there, and I know like your father like originally from Virginia, and that's like I guess like that is where a lot of the bluegrass and like the Appalachia feel comes from, because I think obviously most people relate, especially like Western Canada, to like just open plains and like more like
for sure
Western music. More cowboy songs.
Yeah, totally.
So like what was that like growing up, as far as like, you know, loving this rich roots Appalachia bluegrass stuff, but then like, you know, kind of being in a place that's not necessarily sounding like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that was like sort of, not to say like confusing for me, but I think a lot of people don't understand. This sounds super like uppity, but I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily like know the difference between like, you know, like Western music and then like bluegrass music, or country, like, you know, the different kind of like subgenres of country music and bluegrass. And so it was really frustrating for me a lot of the time, because I would be like, you know, trying to play one very like specific niche kind of style of music, but then everyone, like no one cared about like the nuances, I always felt like. So it was just kind of like this like confusing well of different types of like country music all coming together. And it was, I felt like I never could get what I was like genuinely like trying to reach out of my music, which was that at that point in time, that more kind of like bluegrassy Appalachian style. And so in some ways it was frustrating, but then in a lot of other ways it was really eye-opening, because I was exposed to all of this kind of like, you know, cowboy music, like Ian Tyson. And I feel like there is this kind of like wave of musicians coming from the prairies in Canada, and, you know, like Coulter Wall is an example, and like people that are really tapping into that kind of like Canadian country music sound. And so in some ways it was frustrating, because I felt like I couldn't play bluegrass, but in other ways it was really inspiring, because I was just like also surrounded by this other style of music that I wasn't as familiar with, that I got to learn about. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're talking about like how just people kind of anything that sounds kind of country, that's just all country, right?
It's just
And
all
like,
country music to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I've talked about this a little bit before, where I guess like what is it like on like I think have you ever watched Blues Brothers, like the
Yeah.
movie? Okay,
Hmm.
so they go to play like this like country and western bar, and like I guess like one of the
Hmm.
ladies over there during, and I feel like this like she says a joke about like we like both kinds of music, country and western, and
Yeah.
I think that like that joke has kind of been like lost in translation over time because like you
Hmm.
think of like I think most people think of it now going like oh country and western. She's just saying like oh, I like just one kind of music. But
Yeah.
before like there is a distinction between country and western, and I think like Coulter Wall has like really talked a lot about this about like there being
Yeah.
that line. And are they
Yeah.
cousins? Absolutely. But like there is a little bit of distinction between the two, and yeah, I
Totally.
understand the frustration, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, and then there's like an even thicker line between like bluegrass and country music, but a lot of people don't know where that line is either. And like, I mean, sometimes it is like muddled and confusing, and the edges are blurry because people, are being more experimental these days and taking bigger risks in their like stylistic choices. But I always found that one to be like, come on, guys, how can you not tell the difference? Like it's pretty clear to me most of the time, but yeah, I feel like there's a line. And then there's also that kind of just like, I feel like sometimes it's like you just have to like accept that people don't understand and just might not ever understand. And if they like the music, like that's just a win in itself. So just like I have to sometimes remind myself to be like, okay, Bella, just like accept they like your music. It doesn't matter what they think it is, but they like it. So just like take that and run with it.
Yeah, like down here in Texas, I think a lot of bands that if they weren't from Texas, they would just be considered like rock and roll bands. But since
Yeah.
they are from Texas and you kind of sing with a draw and like you listen to obviously country music growing up, like people always ask them like, well, what kind of music do you play? And then it's like, well, do I say country? Do I say rock and roll? Because it's not going to be the same rock and roll that they're familiar with. It's not going to be like,
Right.
Van Halen. It's not going to be Led Zeppelin. But
Yeah.
it's not also,
Totally.
if I say country, it's not going to be George Strait. And so what do
Yeah.
I say? And it's always like a 15-minute answer. Like I feel like
Yeah, totally.
anytime you ask anyone like what kind of music do you play, like the answer is almost
Yeah.
always has to be that because it's specific to the you, whatever the case is. But
Yeah, and what your influences are.
yeah,
Yeah.
I find like that to be really strange too. Is on the other side is like you do have like that old grizzled like music journalists and a lot of times musicians where like you're talking about like the blending line between bluegrass and country, and then like there's the other side where that guy is like, how do you not see the difference between bluegrass and old time? Or like
Yeah, totally.
and it's like
Yeah.
wait that's like I don't know, I mean there's very much like distinct differences, but like I always find it strange where like that guy gets so mad about that line and not like that bluegrass country line, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. No, I feel like the old time, because like so one of my roommates is like an amazing old time fiddle player, and I play a lot of old time music as well. And I used to get confused because like my dad's also he plays a lot of bluegrass, but he also plays old time and plays clawhammer banjo. And I felt like when I was younger, I was often confused by that line. And it's so funny because I would get so mad at people for not being able to decipher country and bluegrass, but then I wouldn't be able to decipher old time and bluegrass.
Yeah.
And I was just being this little like hypocritical 13-year-old. But yeah, no, that one is definitely, I feel like also there's that line that people, including, I feel like I've got it now, but yeah, at a point in time, that one's confusing too for a lot of people.
And I think like this is like by no stretch am I like a bluegrass like expert, but I think also that's really surprising for a lot of people is just how new bluegrass is as a genre. It's not like it's not like a genre that's 200 years old. It's I guess what is it? Just like around like 100 years old now, something like that. Like
yeah,
it's not
like Bill
something,
Monroe.
And I find like that to be really interesting too, is like how people think of it like as something that's so old, and it is new. And then also like on that same side is just how progressive bluegrass can be, because like you can get a lot of people who are like, they love bluegrass just because of the technical side.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like what's overlooked a lot too is like how complicated bluegrass music is. Like, I think there's this, I notice when I'm talking to, you know, maybe like, I remember like in high school when I'd be like talking with my buddies, like people would be like, oh, it's so boring. It's like so simple. And I'd be like, well, you try and play it then. Like, it's really not simple. It's like, maybe the structure is simple. Maybe you're playing like a few chords and it's not like the most complex form. But when you think about like the technicality of the music, it's so complex and there's so much nuance to it that is like in a lot of cases it's missed or forgotten. And I think that's like what I love so much about that, you know, bluegrass music. And like same with like, you know, country music and old time music, but with bluegrass especially, there's just so much nuance to it that I think is so special.
Yeah. Now, like with obviously when like Coulter releases an EP called Imaginary Appalachia, and him being from an area very, very similar to yours, what, I guess like, was there like a, oh, you know, like people from here, they can also like do bluegrassy kind of music? Was there any kind of like allowance that you saw, like not just for yourself to pursue a music that, you know, that you deeply loved, but like, did you also see it in maybe some of your peers that like you grew up with, as far as like, oh, we don't have to necessarily play just songs about where we're from?
Yeah. I mean, I think like with anything like that, it's just like a lot of times it's like maybe like coming from the people that just want to play the cowboy songs or whatever. It's like almost ignorance in a way. Like they don't actually know that other music is out there. And so, or like, yeah, they don't know that they can play it or that it's accessible for them, like you said. So yeah, I think when people put out, you know, like, and that's a good example of that. Yeah, people see that it's like an option for them, and they realize that, and then they go and do it. So I do think that like Coulter has been a person that has kind of like opened some doors for like more local music scenes to like expand their horizons a little bit, for sure.
Yeah, like I don't know. I also feel like we probably kind of lump, like if you're just from Canada, like Western Canada, like you're all from like the same town or something like that, and that's like clearly not the case. Like I don't know. Like I feel like we probably do that way too much, as far as just kind of lumping all of y'all as like, hey, yeah, you guys are all buddies living on the same neighborhood block or something like that.
Yeah, totally. People do think that. It's very funny to me because Canada's huge.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask, is like, when you're growing up there, like how, I guess, aware are you of, you know, other songwriters who are from the same general area, but like they may be, you know, I guess what you guys have a province over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it is like, oh, okay, well, you know, Corblund, he's been doing this forever. And like, I don't know, like whoever the case, or I'm just blanking on names now, but you know, I guess like how aware are you of like some of the people who have like transcended just like regional or local music?
Totally. I mean, I think I was very aware just because I was in a musical family and like I was going to a lot of shows and I was pretty like in the scene at a young age. So I was like, if I didn't know about somebody, I would hear about them pretty shortly just from like the other people in the scene. And I was always younger than everyone. So I felt like I was like, I really had this kind of like desire to like, I had to know what was up. And I really wanted to not seem like this little like baby that didn't know what she was talking about. Like I had this like strong sense of like feeling like I needed to know my shit. And so I feel like in some ways that was like a drive to like be really hip to like the scene and what was going on in different places. But I think it's funny because I've noticed with a lot of like bigger Canadian names, like Ian Tyson, for example, like I'll be talking to people in the States who are like, you know, like pretty hip to country music. And that's like what they do. Like they're country musicians and they don't know who Ian Tyson is. And that's always like blows my mind. Or like they don't know who Corblund is. And that's like, yeah, those things kind of like, I'm always like, what? Like, how do you not know this? Does Canada have like a big inferiority complex? I guess it gave me one because people just like, I feel like in Canada, everyone knows everyone that's happening in the States and like whatnot. But yeah, I feel like I was always pretty aware of like what was going on. And I think that was just partly from being in a, musical family and just being around it all the time, the scene or whatever.
Yeah. I've always wondered like if, I think like being part of a musical family that obviously is a tie to like knowing what's cool, what's going on. But I always wondered if and I would assume like it is very much like the same upbringing as anyone in the States who is not from a musical family, who's just kind of getting that top layer of culture that, just the MTVs and the VH1s and top 40 radio and Super Bowl halftime, all that kind of stuff. And just, or if there was also like that, just because like I'm from here, I know about, all the Chris Ledoux and the Ian Tysons, like you mentioned, and like if that was just all part of it too, like you just kind of like, I don't know, like that, I say proud, I don't know if I want to say proud, but like, like where you just proud to be a Canadian and like, these are the
you have
forefathers,
some pride. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. I think also like, if you're someone that's like, like me, it's like, I'm trying to do this thing that these people have done and have been successful at. So like, of course I want to like, learn about them and know who they are and know their stories a little bit. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you mentioned like how Canada's like massive.
Yeah.
Well, like obviously there's like the eastern side of Canada where there is like the more of like the, I don't know, like the Arcade Fires and like bands from Toronto or like Drake.
Yeah,
I guess like
sure. Yeah,
like
totally.
is there any kind of like line between Eastern and Western? You mentioned like inferiority complexes and whatnot. Is there anything like that too with like the Eastern side of Canada?
I wouldn't say necessarily. I mean, it's like it's all very like the music styles are really regional. Like if you go over to the East Coast, I feel like a lot of people they talk about like Drake and the big bands coming out of Toronto and whatnot. But also, if there's like a huge in like Quebec, there's like a bunch of like Quebecois fiddle music, and that's like a big thing. And then there's like if you go like super east over to like the Maritimes, there's like a lot of almost like kind of Celtic music happening. And then in the prairies, there's like the Western music, and then it's like I feel like there's just so much overlap in the music, and then like people, because Canada's so big, like you can just tour everywhere. So I would say that it's not so divided, maybe, if that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I don't know.
Well, the reason I ask is because, like, I feel here in Texas, or not just in Texas, but the states in general, a lot of people feel slighted if, like, you're a flyover state. Like everyone on the West Coast is way cooler. Everyone on the East Coast is way smarter, and we're just stuck in the middle here. And so, I know like specifically here in Texas, like I feel there's that complex between like Lubbock, which is like, West Texas, and like Austin or like DFW, or if you look at like Texas versus Nashville, this like
totally
fake, I don't know, battle between the two places. And I don't know, I find that to be really just strange and weird, like how much of like where you're from obviously affects what kind of music you play and like what you write about, but also like just kind of like your, I guess like mood, like your general mood.
Your like vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Like
totally.
And I don't know, like just like being able to, I'll say this, like I've seen people like make it, or like I say quote unquote make it, like quote unquote make it, or like be better because of like spite, I guess. Because they feel like, I didn't have the same advantages, the same opportunities as like someone from wherever. So I don't know. I'm just rambling now.
No, I'm totally with you. I feel like that's definitely a vibe. Another thing that I feel like is like interesting that I notice a lot is like this kind of like urge to like Western aesthetic is becoming like really stylish. So I'm noticing like, I guess like if you're talking about more of like the local scenes in Alberta, as much as there's like, the Western scene, there's also pretty big like alt kind of like indie scene, and everyone dresses like cowboys. So it's very confusing because you're like, what kind of, like, who are you? Like, what is your, like, what are you doing, like, musically? But you're wearing a cowboy hat and, like, a Western shirt and, like, cowboy boots, but, like, then your energy is completely not that, and you don't know anything about what it means to, like, be a cowboy. And I also find that really funny, that I feel like that's kind of happening everywhere too. So it's like there's this boom in, like, it being hip to be, wear the Western garb too.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like there's it's that, it's like the I guess like the I'm blanking, but like the I guess what I'm saying is, like, therefore, like, the longest time, like, wearing like a denim jacket wasn't necessarily the coolest. It's like, oh, Canadian tuxedo, that kind of thing. And then it's like, totally. Now everyone is like wearing denim jackets. Like, and I know this is probably a little bit older, but I feel like that's the same thing as far as like wearing the hats, wearing boots, wearing anything Western. A lot of like turquoises. Yeah. Do you guys get a lot of turquoise up there? As far as people
everyone,
wearing,
like, the jewelry, the earrings, and the necklaces.
Yeah, like the boho kind of gypsy cowboy, cowgirl, Americana aesthetic. Yeah. I don't know. I find
it so confusing. I'm like, what kind of music do you play? Why are you wearing that?
Yeah. One of my buddies, his name's Ross Cooper, and he's from here in Lubbock. He lives in Nashville now, but he comes from, like, a family of like rodeo people, and he was like there for like a minute. He was a professional bear bronc rider, but he's got like a song called Cowboys and Indians, and like it's all poking fun of like this entire thing of like where it is the, like, everyone's dressed up like playing cowboys and Indians, and like it's just all kind of about what we're talking about here. I don't know. I find it weird, not weird, but like I can appreciate it, I guess, but also
totally.
Understand, like, oh man, your boots don't. I don't know. We won't go too far down this line, I guess. I don't know.
This could be like an hours long conversation.
Yeah. Well, also, like, just these people will get mad. So
we won't bug anybody. It will be nice.
Yeah, just go listen to Cowboys and Indians by Ross, and y'all will all. He sums it up in like a 4-minute song. So there you go.
I think Coulter also has one like that called Talkin' Prairie Boy.
Yeah, that one like too. That. Yeah,
same vibe. Yeah,
an IPA. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that's I guess I interviewed Coulter back when that record came out on the podcast. So listeners, if you want to go listen to that. But like we talk about like that modern kind of like talking blues song, because like that's essentially what it is. And like I don't know if people are necessarily doing that, and I think it's like, something that should be done, could be done, at least done well. So I don't know. I don't know. Now, like I said, I'm just kind of rambling now. What I wanted to kind of go back to and like kind of end on is how on this record, like I feel like what you've done so well is like just capture these little like pockets of emotion where maybe you're singing about a bigger emotion, like being either like the breaking up of a relationship or whatever that is. But what you've done as far as like in these songs, I feel like you've broken them into like digestible sizes, if that makes sense. Like just like where it is not just like I've been left and what do I do now? But it's like in these little it's almost like you've focused on like the smaller details that are like why you feel something about that person leaving or that person being away or whatever the case is. I guess like for you, like how, like, I don't know, like aware are you of that? Or like, is that something that you've been trying to do? Or is that just something that just kind of comes a little bit more natural?
Yeah, I mean, well, I like hearing that, the digestible sizes. That's really nice. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I definitely, like, I say that I often say that I'm an extremely emotional person. So I feel emotions and I feel them really big. Like, I just always have, and I think I always will. And like, I'm okay with that. It's a blessing and a curse. But I think because of that, I try to really, like, when I'm feeling an emotion, like, tap into what exactly I'm feeling, kind of like what we were talking about before, like this thesis or whatever, but like, what's the point of the emotion that I'm feeling? And I feel like everyone feels things, and sometimes people don't know exactly what it is or what's making them feel this, like, I don't know how to articulate it, but it's like you'll have these very like specific feelings that you can't necessarily put a name on. And I feel like what I kind of tried to do with the songs, and I don't think I was super like thinking about this actively as I was writing them, but it was kind of more like talking about the crafting, like coming back to them, trying to like, tap into that emotion a little bit more and like make that more present. I feel like it's like trying to break down all of the big emotions that we feel into smaller little, like you said, like digestible sizes. And then, just kind of focus on that and like try and bring that to light. But I also think sometimes it just like comes naturally because I feel so much. I just like have to say it how it is. I don't know if that makes any sense or if that was just a big ramble of words, but
yeah, no, I think there's like, I guess like it makes a lot of sense what you were talking about before. Now that you mentioned what I was saying before, where sometimes you do have so much to say, and like I feel like what you've done here is like a lot of times like they are like just instead of like zooming out and like trying to capture all of it, you do the opposite and you zoom in, and it's closer to, I don't know, like maybe the moment, or like instead of like trying to write about an hour, you like write about 5 minutes or something, or like the aftermath.
Yeah, well, and totally. And I think also something that I didn't realize until, well, I had realized it by the time I made this record because I did this on it, but you can like write more than one song about the exact same thing. Like, I think that I used to think like, oh, you have something happen, okay, you're going to write one song about it, and then something else will happen and you'll write a song about that. But like, like we said, like if you feel something really big, you'll feel a lot of different emotions around it all at the same time. So yeah, it's like zoning in on like this little specific things that you're feeling. And then you can write, like, for example, like The Hand of Your Raising and Just Unwanted are about like the exact same moment in time, but I just like had a lot of different feelings going on in that moment. So I tried to tune into like, each of them differently. And I didn't necessarily know that's what I was doing when I was writing the songs. But then, once I kind of wrote down the initial bones, I like took a moment and was like, oh yeah, these are about this exact same thing, just like a very different way of feeling it.
Yeah, like that's really, because I feel like you always just think about like anyone that's close to you, like, for example, like if you just think of your mother, there's like everything that you love about your mother, and then there's like those things that you don't like, and so like or that like that just like bother you, or like that one thing that she did one time that you're just kind of like not getting over, you're like embarrassed by, like my mom.
Off about. Yeah.
So like it's
totally.
like that kind of thing where you can write about all those little aspects, like just move over one step, and then you get different shadows, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of times when, I don't know, like I have this thing where my go-to example on this is like where, okay, so like a song I feel doesn't have to be like just the way you always feel, right? Like it can be just about like rage, and that doesn't mean you're mad, right? Like that can be, or like, obviously people write sad songs, and that doesn't mean they're a sad person just all the time.
Yeah.
But
totally.
I feel like sometimes we, as a listenership, or like as journalists, sometimes you can just like generalize that person as that. And so like my example that I'm talking about here is like a song like I Hope He Breaks Your Heart by American Aquarium. Like BJ's talked about how like, when he wrote that song, it was about like, he was really, really hurt by this woman that was his ex-girlfriend, and that, he wanted to cut her the same way that she had cut him, basically. And then now, like, you know, I guess it's probably like 10 years later or something like that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't feel that exact same thing. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we lose that. Like, we just think that, like, he still hates her or something like that. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it's like interesting when you're like writing about a person. It's like, I feel like, to expose myself, I guess, a little bit, like, you know, if you write about someone, it's like, let me figure out how to articulate this. It's like, okay, hold on. I have to use my brain. Well, it's like, yeah, you can write, like, I kind of joke, like, you know, there's like some songs on my albums that are like, my album, that is like a, you know, it's like a diss track. It's kind of like a hate song, like Not to Blame. It's kind of like, that song's kind of mean. Like, I'm kind of being mean in that song. But then, like, on the other side of the dime, you know, then there's songs like about the same person, and it's like full of love, and it's like just about how much I love them, and I'm sad, and like, I'm maybe the reason that I'm being mean is because I'm actually sad. You know, it's just like, just because, like, when you're writing about a person, you're writing about another, like, complex human. So of course there's so much to say, and of course you can write, like, you can have a lot of different feelings about them. I don't know, that was another big word jumble, but
no, I think, like, it's like, what I love is I guess, like, not necessarily like challenging a listenership, but like challenging people to, like, think about songs in ways that, like, aren't necessarily just what you're listening to on the status quo. And so, like, think about like this whenever you're thinking about listening to songs, because, like, another thing connected to this is in music especially, or in art in general, as far as, like, when you're writing, it's always like your tendency to trust the narrator and, like, believe in the narrator's story, as far as, like, being the quote unquote hero and, like, being the good. And, like, sometimes, like, you'll listen to a song and one day it'll pop into your head, like, oh, you know what? Like, this person's actually not the good person in the breakup. Or, like, they're just the one with the pen. And so, like, sometimes it's that too.
Oh man. Yeah, you can be the antagonist in your own story. You just, like, your instinct is never to believe that when you're reading something. Yeah, or listening, I guess. We're talking about music.
Yeah, like, I think, like, it's very much like something that we really don't think about as often as, like, as we should, because, like, especially, like, here in, like, I don't know, traditionally in we're just going to use the general country, even though we broke down, like, the differences between country and stuff. But, like, it's almost always like the woman breaks the guy's heart, right? And she's the victim.
And then he kills her.
Yeah, and, like, sometimes not sometimes, a lot of times it's like, you know, she didn't do anything wrong. Like, you're being an asshole. So I don't know.
Yeah, you're just pissed off. You're just, like, mad at her, and you have a pen. Exactly.
So I don't know. I find that so just really interesting, and I don't know.
Oh,
like,
it's super interesting.
It's one of those things where, like, again, like, you just have a tendency to believe the singer as, like, being the hero, and, like, you just one day sometimes you'll listen to a song and be like, man, you know, maybe he wasn't like doing this right. So
yeah, well, and I think something that I, like, love about bluegrass, and, like, again, I'm gonna pile them together, even though we talked about how they're very different things. But with, like, bluegrass and country music, especially, like, the classic stuff, like, I think about, like, the Stanley Brothers or, like, George Jones, or, you know, the older stuff. It's, like, so often the way that they write too about, like, their feelings, it's literally just like, I'm sad. You made me sad. This is why I'm sad. I'm so sad right now. And I think that's always really funny too, and really endearing, because it's like, there's not actually very much going on in those songs. It's literally just like, I'm mad at you. Boom. And I think that's kind of also, like, an inspiring lesson for writing. It's like, all those hits, like, you don't have to, like, use so much fluff. You can just, like, say how you feel, and it's fine.
Yeah, like, it's I don't know. It's always so funny too about, especially, like, those kind of, I guess, like, you get those images of someone like a George Jones, right, as being, like, a man's man, and, like, he's just singing about like how sad he is or how hurt he's been, or like I always kind of go to this guy because he's, like, every grandmother absolutely loves Conway Twitty. And it's like,
Yeah, of course.
that guy just, of course, like so much swagger, so much like just, but if anyone else did it, like if you just, I guess like what I'm saying is like, if this happened without the song, you'd kind of go like, oh my God, who is this guy? Cheesy.
Yeah, you're so crestfallen. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think like the images that we have in our head, or like what we've been told about people as far as like how you should be perceiving him as a songwriter or an artist or whatever the case is, sometimes like it's nice to challenge those ideas, I guess, because like you're not necessarily always the writer. Like just because you write a song doesn't mean you're that way.
Yeah, and it's not so cut and dry. Totally.
So not to blame. That's your Drake diss track.
That's my diss track. Yeah, totally.
So, it's been really, really great talking with you today.
Yeah, this has been lovely.
Well, yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thanks so much for listening. Be sure to check out Bella White's Just Like Leavin'. It's really one of the hidden gems of the year. Go check out the Patreon and the merch store. Be ready for the Neon Eon when it launches next week. Episode 1 is with Clay Walker. This one right here was ad-free, but do go visit our buddies over at Hot Damn Coffee, Desert Door, and the Blue Light Live. Be sure to stay safe if you plan on celebrating the end of this long, dreadful year tonight. Let's hope 2021 brings us better fortunes than this past year has, and that while 2020 has been taxing for most of us, hopefully we don't let it just be a block of wasted time. Hopefully we've all bettered ourselves and become more grateful and appreciative and patient and kind. And again, thank you for listening. Hopefully you hit that subscribe link, and I'll see y'all next week.